played football.
What position?
Quarterback.
Okay.
And so that was going well. And then one day blew out my knee and destroyed it, wrapped it 3 times and tore all the ligaments in it and never really got back to sports. So that was my junior year of high school. And I think that's the first big pivot point for me in life. So all this stuff leading up to that, still to this day, if people ask me what are some of the most pivotal moments of your life, I remember the moment laying on the field, knowing that everything was torn and going, nothing will ever be the same.
Yeah.
Like nothing's going to look the same for me. And my dreams are now going to have to change. And they did. Now, it wasn't an easy process, but they did have to change.
Yeah. How long do you think you kind of sat in that, pity party?
A long time. Goodness. So I ended up going to Indiana University and going to Indiana because 3 of the guys on my AU team went there.
Okay.
And so I went and kind of was their biggest fan.
Okay.
But developed a really heavy opioid addiction because what happened was when you have such a severe knee injury, you have to wait till the swelling goes down. So you get put on painkillers.
Yeah.
And then you have the surgery and you get put on again. And so for me, it was like 7 months pretty much of being prescribed these painkillers.
Yeah. Because what year is this?
This would have been 2011.
Okay.
10 and 11.
Yeah.
And
this is before they stopped.
Oh, no, sorry. 2007. So I was in high school. I was a junior. So it was 2007 when the injury happened.
Yeah. This is because zoom out, in history type of a thing. Like this is right around the time where people were starting to realize opioids have a downside.
Yeah.
Because for a while I had a doctor on the show a couple months back, and he was telling me that it was in the mid to late 90s, and he was in the room when these pharmaceutical reps would come in talking about the opioids they're trying to sell to the doctors, and they would talk about how there's no downside, there's no side effects.
Yeah, sure.
And all this other stuff. And then, pretty quickly found out, in a decade and a half, it's like, oh, this is actually a crisis across the entire country, that we're getting like your demographic specifically addicted to these painkillers. And then I had Brandon Novak on the show, who's one of the guys on Jackass, and he has a bunch of recovery centers and stuff now. He's completely sober, but that was kind of his path. Is like he got prescribed opioids or whatever, and then it just gets a little bit. You get addicted to it, and then they stop prescribing, and then you realize heroin's cheaper, and then you go that route, and it becomes a real problem really, really quick. So you must have been like right in that window, because I was like 2010, 2012 or so, when I had terrible injury and went in. I had ankle reconstruction surgery is what it was, my junior year of college, which would have been like 2012, 2013. And they would not give me anything. Like I was in a lot of pain because my ankle got infected after the surgery. And I went back in and was like, I am in pain here. And they're like, we can't give you anything, man. Like here's like, it was, I forget exactly what it was, but it was a much like tampered down version of what a painkiller would have been at that point. So even in that window, I think they were just like, we got to stop giving these things out like candy to these like 16-year-old kids, Yeah,
hoping they can figure it out. I mean, for me, it was a long time being prescribed, and then you start to steal, you start to buy from whoever else can get their hands on it, right? This was kind of the, there was many, kind of under the table drugs being like sold around and used by my friends at the time, tramadol and all these things. And you don't really realize, I don't think I realized how hooked I was for a long time. And it was numbing a lot of my emotion. And so the sadness from giving up this thing that you loved your whole life, the thing you dreamed of, as you asked, what were your dreams back then? This thing you dreamed of. So like it numbed me from having to really confront it.
Yeah.
And so I continued it for as long as I could until I realized how destructive it was to myself and others. But that was the big switch, for me.
What did you eventually do to get off of it?
Man, I don't love to get too Christian talk all the time, but I had what I would call a very clear come to Jesus moment. I was kind of walking through relationships, friendships, romantic relationships, people, and just kind of pushing them to the side.
Yeah.
And one morning woke up and was confronted with it. Was really the first time that somebody called me out on it. And I remember going to my bathroom at my house in Bloomington and looked at myself in the mirror. And I looked at myself in the mirror, which is a scary thing to do. Nobody really ever does it. Like you see yourself in the mirror, but like stare into your eyes a little bit in the mirror, like it could freak you out, especially when you're on a low or coming off a high, I guess. And I remember looking in the mirror and say, God, if you're there, like I either need you to heal me or I'm going to take myself. And because at that point I just ran the course. And
this is still high school?
No, this was in college.
This is in college. Okay.
So this addiction lasted about 3.5 years.
Okay.
And I remember having this like overwhelming feeling come over me, and I stopped cold turkey.
Wow.
Gave it up. I don't, like I said, I don't want to go into like, I don't mind going into it or trying to explore it, but I don't know the answer other than God intervened in my life in a way that it had changed me forever at that point. And an addict always desires, I think, the bottle. And there's moments in my life since then where I've desired the numbing, I've desired the feeling, I've desired, all those things. But the demand for it in my life wasn't there. And I knew, the path continuing to take them wasn't good. And so I switched course at that point with God's help.